And there we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to 3D Bootcamp by CADA Truemax. Today we're going to be working on a dragon inside ZBrush Core Mini. This is a small version of a specialist program called ZBrush. In case this is the first time opening it up, you might have this banner of things that is like showing you different things other people have made. Feel free to just close that one down. We don't need it. And we'll be met with a sphere. So ZBrush Core Mini is sort of baked down to just the essentials of things we need to do to sculpt, and we'll be going through navigation and everything like that. I'd like to welcome everybody in the chat and ask where you're from and say hi. I'll say hi as well. So, inside ZBrush Core Mini, we have a sphere. That is pretty easy. If we hold down Alt and, oh, sorry, nope, I'm a bit ahead of myself. If we left click outside of the sphere, we can make the sphere spin around. This could be a little difficult to see, so I'm just gonna make 2 dots on mine. You can see it's spinning around. And if we hold down Shift, we can like snap it to different views, so we look at it from different angles. If we hold down Control and left click outside of the sphere, we can zoom in and out, and Alt will allow us to pan around. Now, as some of you might have seen, it doesn't work when you have your mouse on the model or on the sphere, and that's a little bit annoying. So to mitigate that, we can right click anywhere, and this will allow us with the same hotkeys to move around in the scene. All right. So that is the basics of navigation inside ZBrush Core Mini. We have just a step or 2 more before we're going to go on. First things first, you might see that I have this little red dot inside of my scene, and you will have the same thing. This means that you have symmetry on. So whatever you do on one side will also be done on the other one. That is pretty cool because it means it halves our workload. And a thing we need to do is press P on our keyboards. And this is because by default, ZBrush Core Mini has perspective on. And ZBrush Core Mini's perspective isn't very good. So we want to turn it off. It can also be turned up or off up in the right-hand corner where it says perspective distortion. And that is sort of, yeah, that is if you want to know the hotkey or where the button is. So, first things first, we see our tool is this sculpting tool, but that's actually not the first tool we want to use whenever we sculpt something, whenever we're working with ZBrush. First thing we want to do is we want to define our basic forms. And to do this, we don't want to sculpt, we want to move things. So we're going to move out on the left-hand side of our screen. We're going to find our Move tool. Now our Move tool allows us to grab the geometry that's already there and just move it around freely in 3D space. And while our brushes are fairly small in the beginning, we can actually change the size of it by pressing S, and this will give you a slider. And you can make this pretty big. They'll allow you to make drastic changes to your model. So we want to start with our Move brush, and we want to start defining the head of our dragon. Now we're going to have to get a little bit creative because while we have reference, we only have reference from the profile view of it, like the side of it, and we need to start, you know, getting a little bit inventive when we start looking at it from the side instead. Or not the side, the front and the top. But yeah, so the first, and this is the thing that's sort of when you start off as a new person and you start sculpting, you want to get into sculpting, you want to use the sculpt brushes, but the fundamental of sculpting is always starting off from a strong base shape and a strong silhouette. So you want to work on that for as long as possible. And it might seem a little bit like, oh, a little bit too much sometimes, but trust me, it's easier to do now than later because your details are not going to look all that good if they're not on a good shape. So, as you can see, I'm just moving around, I'm spinning, and I'm moving around so I can define the shapes of my dragon's head. You can see here it has a bit of like a bulge on top of its head where its snout is here. Whoop. So I want to make sure that that gets in there because that's actually a lot of its defining feature. It gives it this sort of, it tells us that it has like a very strong sense of smell, which is like creature design things, where if you start to go into, well, how does this creature hunt? How does this creature live? How does it exist in the world that it lives in? And we need to tell that by doing physical characteristics. There's somebody coming over there. So
How do you turn off the symmetrical?
that is by pressing X, but I would not advise it because while we are going to turn it off later when we're just working with base shapes, we want to, as much as possible, keeping it symmetrical, because pretty much every living thing on Earth follows the law that is bilateral symmetry. Which means that down the middle of the face, creatures will be symmetrical. There are a few things that break this, and that's like flounders and owls. And I know what some of you are thinking, what the hell do I mean with owls? Well, owls' ear holes are on two different parts of their head. So that makes them very asymmetrical. Yeah. Can you help over there? Just get her started. Yep. So we want to make sure as much as possible that our creature is symmetrical from the start, at least profile-wise, like from the front. If we look at it here, we know that it's symmetrical. And in the beginning, I at very least, I use these very big, broad things, and I'm just pushing and pulling. And that's really what you should be doing. You should be pushing and pulling your shapes as much as possible. And don't be afraid to try things. It's so often that beginners are like, oh, I want to make sure I do this right from the beginning. If you're not sure about a move, try it out. This is digitally. If it was real clay, I would understand the fear. But in digital, we can press Control Z, and this will like undo what we've just done, which means we can honestly try out as many things as we like and see if they work. And then if they don't, we can just undo them, which is really, really nice. And trust me, I've worked in both stone carving and working with clay, and having the undo button is just the best thing in the world. I wish I had it with proper clay or with real clay, but we don't, sadly. And when I say spend as much time on this as you like need, oh, perfect, yes. You know that feeling when something goes wrong and it's perfect timing because I need to show it? So sometimes this will happen to you in your view where, while it might be hard for you to see, I am now locked to an axis in my viewport. If this happens, you might, this will happen for most people at one point or another. The easiest way of getting out of this is grabbing your little head up here in the right-hand corner and just pulling it around a bit. This will reset the way you transform or the way you rotate and navigate inside ZBrush Core Mini, and you'll get your view back to normal. What up?
Just a quick thing from the chat. A couple of people said hi. There is Olga saying hi. She's from Ukraine, but she's living in Denmark. And Edgar is back, and he wants to share a kick-ass wolf he made last time.
Yeah.
After rewatching. He's also, I think, a little bit behind. I just want to catch him up. He says, just a minute, my Blender looks quite different.
Oh, this is not Blender.
This is not Blender, yeah. This is ZBrush Core.
This is ZBrush Core Mini. So the principles of sculpting don't necessarily change. You can sculpt inside Blender as well. The reason why we don't do it is because Blender isn't optimized for sculpting. So
you have an email. In that email, there was a link to a program you were supposed to download before this session.
Yeah. So just go in on Maxon ZBrush Core Mini, and you can download it fairly quickly. It takes about 2 minutes to install. So yeah. But it actually leads us into a very good thing with the whole sculpting. Like, you can sculpt in Blender but so why would you ever sculpt in ZBrush? Well, Blender is what in the industry we call a DCC, digital content creator. It can do everything, which means it's not very good at everything, but it can do it. So every now and again for things we want to use specialized programs. And ZBrush is exactly that. It's a specialist program for sculpting. And you can do extremely high polygon count models and not have your program crash on you every 5 minutes. So, and there are other softwares like that, where if you want to go into texturing, you can do Substance Painter, 3D Code, Quixel Mixer, Armor Painter, Marvelous Designer, Mari. You can hear there's a whole ton of programs that we can use and that we have in our arsenals as 3D artists. So we've been moving around here a little bit. And one of the things you might be annoyed at sometimes is you move freely in 3D space. If you hold down the Alt key on your keyboard, you will turn on the brush's alternate function. And while that sounds like it's going to change it a lot, what it does for the Move tool is whatever face you click on and with your mouse is like, oh, sorry about that, is, oh, mine keeps gimbal locking, is going to be the way you move. It's going to be based on that face and nothing else. So you can't move it back and forwards. You can only move it out or in from that. What up?
Short keys that displays?
No, does not exist for this. Also, I'm not using any hotkeys.
Okay, got it.
There is literally no hotkeys today.
Perfect. Okay.
I'm not using any hotkeys. I'm going out here in my left-hand panel to pick the different tools. Right now I'm using the Move tool, which is here, and probably one of the most useful ones. All right. And sometimes you might get these weird areas where things fold in on themselves, or you get a little bit of ugliness. If we hold Shift, we have a tool that is not listed anywhere, and it's the Smooth tool. If we use that and drag over our mesh, we will automatically smooth out whatever it is we've made. Now this will ruin details later on, but right now when we're just working on big shapes, it's very nice and it's very useful to sort of like, oh, I sort of like some of that movement. I don't like all of it. I just want some of it there. Shift. Hold Shift down and then left click on your model, and this will smooth. Yeah. Yeah. But like I said, it will destroy a lot of your definition once we get into detail work. All right. I want this bit flatter. I want this out a little bit. Oh, again. It might be my tablet, actually. Let's see. And I'm just moving things around. And as you can see here, I have pushed material in here, and I've pushed sort of the material beneath it up, and this is creating my mouth for me right now. So even though it's not going to be the final mouth I use, it is a place to start. And it's just to help give me some landmarks on the dragon, on the face, that I can use to start defining the rest of it as well. When we sculpt, we talk a lot about bony landmarks, and these are the places where your bones are very close to the surface. So your cheekbones on humans. On this dragon, it would most likely be the jawbone here. And you have this orbital around the eye that we also really want to get defined. We'll define it later, don't worry. So you have a lot of these different types of, well, you have bony landmarks that we really want to get right, because those are the ones that are going to change the least. And then we have soft landmarks, which are big muscles that are very defined, and we want to, as much as possible, sort of have them visible. We're not really going to get that much into muscle. We might get a little bit into it on the jaws, but not all that much. That mouth actually goes a little bit down here, goes down like that. This is not that concave. And see, I had a weird shape before that didn't really look like my dragon. And what was happening there is I was trying to remember what my dragon looked like from my head instead of using my reference. And it's just a really good idea just to have your reference. If you're making somebody else's concept art like we are today, look at it as much as possible to make sure you sort of get it right. If you're making something from your own mind and you have a idea of what animals you're stealing what parts from, make sure you have reference from those animals that you can then go and say, oh, that's what that looks like. That's what a lion's lower jaw looks like. That's what a lion's shoulder looks like. And all these things, instead of trying to figure it out yourself, because that's very rarely going to work, at least until you have many, many years of experience with trying to do anatomy. I think most people will always use reference one way or another, because nobody knows every animal and every muscle on every animal. So let's stop pretending that we need to as artists. Yeah, that counts for everything. It counts for animation as well. It counts for pretty much every aspect of artistic things. Copy the masters, and the masters copied nature, so in reality, nature is the master. All right. It's not quite there. I'm a little bit off on my nose shape still. You can really see, like, I'm spending a lot of time on this, and that's because this needs to be right. As a little note as to why I know this is because I design miniatures in my free time for all y'all online and some of you here, and I use ZBrush to do that. Well, I use ZBrush and Blender to do that, and just from experience of trying to make something enough times on my own, not spending time on your base shapes is really gonna, it's not gonna work out in the end. You're gonna hate yourself for it. All right, so I've sort of moved on from using big and defining strokes, and what I'm doing now is I'm just moving things very softly, quick movements, quick small to make sure that they are more with what it is I want to make. Yeah. And I'm just using Move Tool. It's just pinched together. See, now we're actually getting somewhere. It's looking good. I'm just gonna define my eyebrow ridge here because I know it doesn't look like this. I know it's defined here, but it's not very defined here. So we need to push this in. This needs to come in a little bit more organically. And we can push. Actually, you know what? I like this shape. We're gonna go a little bit off script. And this is one of the wonderful things about ZBrush. When you're modeling things in Blender, it feels very planned. Everything you do feels very, very planned, and as if you need to know the next step all the time. ZBrush is a bit more loose. It's a bit more flexible, and you can actually just make a mistake or make an accident, or suddenly the mesh behaves in a weird way, and then you go like, oh, that looks great. I want to use that more. I want to explore whatever that shape is and make it into something. And that is just absolutely lovely feeling. And it really starts to feel like you're more of a traditional artist that's working with clay or with paint. And to quote the lovely Bob Ross, it's happy little accidents.
He's a wise man.
He was a wise man. Yeah. And a very lovely man at that as well. So, final thing I am going to do with my move tool is I'm going to go to the back of my head and I'm going to pull out a whole bunch of geometry because this is going to become the neck. And we're not going to work too much with the neck, but it's just nice to have it there because just the head sometimes looks weird and can give you like these weird proportions and make it hard for you to visualize what it is the rest of this is going to look like. Just adding the neck in there really helps with that when you're starting out, and really helps with it for beginners to give a feeling that this is more than just a floating head that is, well, what is it attached to? How do we define it from there? So yeah, I would, for busts like this, I would always make the neck. And again, I'm getting a lot of this stretching here. I'm not too worried about it right now. Most of all because we can use it later. All this stretching isn't necessarily bad. It might look ugly right now, but we can actually make some pretty cool things out of it if we are lucky. And that's, again, if we're lucky. So, looks like it would not be thick there. It would still be thin. So, just gonna move that in again. There we go. All right. So, I want to add my horns because I want the basic silhouette down before we start working on everything else. And while I could pull them back with the move tool, you'll realize very quickly that the move tool sort of has limitations. It's not going to move too much in one time, and this is really annoying. Like it reaches a point where it doesn't want to follow your mouse anymore, no matter how much you stretch it. And we really want to stretch out the horns of it. So right next to the move tool out in our tools menu, we have the snake hook brush. Now what the snake hook brush is the same thing as the move tool, except it creates new geometry. So when we pull this, you can see it's following along. And just for a more detailed view, I can show you quickly here, Shift F. You don't need to do this. This is line fill. It's not necessary. It's just to show you. This is what our geometry looks like right now. Whenever we use the move tool, we're just pulling what's already there. If we use the snake hook brush, we're creating new geometry as it goes. Which means, oh, that's too much, that we can get a lot further and we can create bigger shapes. What, the snake hook? Oh, Shift F. Okay, so yeah, I'll just explain what Shift F does. Shift F is line fill. So remember last week we were doing polygon modeling. So we were selecting faces and we were extruding them and all these things. Shift F, or line fill out here, polyfill, is just visualizing our polygons, our faces on our object here. And as you can see, everything's triangles and squares. Mostly triangles in ZBrush Core Mini, but still. And that's just what that does. So there's only two tools inside ZBrush Core Mini that don't create new geometry. And one of them is Move, the other one is Inflate, which we will get to shortly. There's also a little bit of a religious debate in the 3D community whether or you should use the move tool or the snake hook, because some people really like using the snake hook as a move tool, and that's just a personal preference thing more than anything else. I am personally in the category that likes to use the move tool, but some people like using the snake hook, and while I don't understand it, there's nothing wrong with it. All right, I'm just gonna pull out the neck sack, or doo-wop as it's called. And that is actually the name for it. I'm not just making shit up. It's called a doo-wop. Here, because we want that to be, we can see it's a fairly important part of our silhouette. So we want it to be there. And if it's a little bit angular, we can just press Shift and smooth it out. And the Shift brush also creates new geometry, or the smooth brush also will create new geometry for you. There you go. I think the neck might have to come out a little bit. And you can see I'm really just spending so much time on the basic shapes because I cannot overstate how important it is. Because as soon as you start going into detailing, you cannot, like you can go in and change the basic shape, but you're gonna ruin your details. Their definitions are going to be stretched out in ways that are undesirable for whatever it is you're sculpting. And then at that point, you might as well smooth over everything and create them again instead, because, well, that's less work than creating a new, oh, damn it, than creating or trying to fix what you already have there. All right. So let me see, is there anything else I would really love to define right now? Maybe want to move this out a little bit. So working with 3D and then 2D on top of it will also teach you how forgiving 2D art is. So when we look at concept art, how forgiving concept art is compared to when you have to make that work in 3D. And this jaw is one of those really good examples, because we can see here, the top jaw it has an overbite, and the top jaw comes over the underjaw or the lower jaw. But then right next to it, we have underbite. The underbite is thicker than the overbite is. And then at the end again, we have overbite again. So we have to zigzag between overbite and underbite on our dragon, because we need to make sure we, as much as possible, follow a 2D artist instructions. So just gonna make sure I have my overbite there. This has its underbite. There we go. All right. Oh, that's a bit weird. And yeah, just gonna fix that. There we go. All right. So I think that's about where I will call it for my move brush. I'm just gonna make these extra folds of skin here. And what I'm doing is just with a fairly small brush size, I'm moving material out, but I'm moving it out at a fairly sharp angle. So it's becoming these ridges here. Ridges and folds and stuff like that. But we'll go in and define them further on. We'll create the big one that's here as well. This is tendon of some sort. And make that work. Don't worry. All right. Gonna go in here, gonna go in here. There we go. Now I'm about happy with it. Not really. But you know what? Show must go on. Let's get the next thing. So let's get into our sculpting tools. First one we have is our standard tool. This is the one you'll be on when you start the program. It's the top left one inside of your tools menu. And the standard tool will create these soft bulges or ridges inside of or on your mesh. And it can be really nice. Some people think it's really nice to use it to create everything, create shapes, create bony landmarks. But it really depends on who you are. If you like this one, then that's great. Good for you. But next to it, we have the one I prefer to use. This is called Clay Buildup. It does pretty much exactly the same, except it has a very hard definition, a very hard edge. And the reason why I like this is the same reason as with the move tool. We get these happy accidents every now and again. And we really want those happy accidents because they look more natural than if everything is planned out. And these happy little accidents are like this ooh, yeah, this shape right here, it's just lovely. This looks like, it doesn't function as a muscle should do, but it looks like a muscle should be here now. So we're getting this definition of muscle on the jaw. It's going to go up here and anchor. We have this extra one going into the back. You don't really see that in anything that lives. Oh, actually, you see it in snakes. Snakes will have this muscle that goes all the way back to the spine. I think some of them have it anchored on the 3rd or 4th vertebra, which will help them unhinge their jaws. It's really cool. While most creatures with this type of physiology here will just have a jaw muscle that anchors down here and up here on the skull. But this looks really nice. I like it. I'm going to keep that one. And just like with our move tool, we actually have an alternate function of both our clay buildup and our standard brush. And that is if we hold down Alt, and instead of adding material, it's going to start carving into your model. So this is really great when we want to define the mouth more later. Or if we want to define the eye hole here, you can see I can start defining these things, nostrils, just adding, subtracting, pushing and pulling shapes to get more and more definition. It's just absolutely lovely workflow. All right, let's see. Got a little bit of wibbly wobbly here in the front. You would never have muscles out here unless you have like facial muscles to pull your lips to make words and stuff. But you know what? Maybe this dragon is very communicative. Maybe it likes to talk. So just gonna do this. And if you do too much, just smooth it out. What's up?
I just thought maybe it would be a good idea to let people know that it's okay that they're not doing exactly what you're doing.
I did. Okay, well, I'll say it again. Yeah, so in case you feel pressured to do exactly what I do, don't. This is creativity, it's freedom. You should make exactly what you want to make. Don't have to follow along on mine. I am probably also a little bit quicker. Like said, I do work with this professionally. I do make and sell models. So I don't expect somebody who picks it up for the first time is gonna be the same level as me. And you shouldn't expect that as well. It's actually a really fun discussion because we have it with students a lot, where students feel like, oh, I'm not as fast as the teachers, I'm not as fast as people I see online. Well, of course not. People you see online have years and years of experience. And it's not just you, it's everybody. And I see it too. We had a guest teacher in who was not, well, he was faster than me at modeling. And I looked and was like, wow. And then I realized, oh yeah, well, he has 8 years more experience than me. Give me 8 years, I'll be at that level as well. And that's the whole thing. You have to allow yourself to grow and get better as well. You don't have to be master of everything the first time you pick it up. And that's one of those things where, I mean, we'd love to help you here at CADA getting to the point where you can master it. And that's also one of the things we really do a lot when working with our students. And I hope everybody at home is also following along. So yeah, don't expect everything. And so also one of those things that the clay tubes or the clay buildup brush does is it creates this definition. It creates this more like, oh, these edges, all these roughness. It allows me to not think that everything has to be perfect. It allows me to go and say, oh, it's sketchy. It's all right now. We can just work with it, see where everything goes, and allow a little bit of freedom. Yeah. How is everybody doing at home? Do please tell us in the chat. I can of course see people here how they're doing. They're doing wonderfully. And yeah, how are you doing at home? You having fun? Sculpting your jam? It's normally one of those things that people just fall in love with very, very quickly.
I surprisingly didn't.
Well, You're a special case. You're an animator.
But now I love it.
Yeah. So for all of you at home, Mito was saying he didn't fall in love with ZBrush right away, and I think that's because Mito is an animator, but he then fell in love with it later. So, you know, one way or another, I think everybody agrees that ZBrush is an amazing tool for what it does, and it's also one of those things where it's apart from Blender, it's like the most used hobby software in the world. Yeah, so many people buy ZBrush without ever using it commercially, and that is perfectly valid. And it also doesn't matter if you don't want to get ZBrush or buy ZBrush, if you just want to sculpt in Blender, because the principles of sculpting don't change. We're looking to define basic shapes first, and then we're looking to define landmarks, and we're gonna start defining muscle and things like that. And we don't, like, the principles of 3D don't change from software to software, they stay the same. So we are just carving away. I'm also, sorry, getting some questions. Lovely.
Yeah, the chat is saying hi back, and Luca Lazar is writing, it's fun, but it's a mess.
Yeah, it tends to be.
Yeah, Edgar's just watching, he says, and talking about general 3D modeling. When do you use Blender and when do you use ZBrush? Can you integrate both? We can also take that in the Q&A if you want.
Yeah, we could definitely do both. I can even show you how to do both. Oh, we'll do that afterwards. But yeah, let's do that in the Q&A. I can do a quick little retop and show you guys. I want to round this out a little bit. Again, every now and again, instead of using these big strokes to define things, I'm using small strokes, just itty bitty changes, so I can quickly see, is that what I want? Is that not what I want? And then if it is what I want, I can keep it. If it isn't, I can quickly remove it without having any sort of commitment to it. And that is one of those things that we really want. We want to be able to have the freedom to create without worrying about, freedom to try things out, freedom to create without worrying about that it needs to be perfect every time. All right. I think that's just about where I want my head. Actually, I want, this shape is kind of interesting. I want to define that a little bit more. What is this? That is weird. I also put the nostril in the wrong place. Again, I stopped looking at my reference because I thought I knew what it looked like. We shouldn't do that. I shouldn't do that, and nobody else should as well. Got a little bit of muscle here, so this goes in. So I'm just looking at shadows, and I'm looking at highlights and going, well, this is some sort of bone that needs to come up and be defined. That's pressing on our nostril. Maybe I want to move my nostril a little bit back. There we go. Smooth things out, see how the final result might look like. There we go. Get this up. Make sure the eye is where I need it to be. Yeah. Any more questions from the chat?
Just getting my mic on. Let's see. Edgar says, please do. I think he's referring to the Blender and ZBrush.
Yeah, I'll show a little bit of that in the end.
Yeah, he's also saying that I was creating a game, but I was using pixel art, but really considering to do it using 3D and Unity will look nicer than pixels in JavaScript canvas.
I don't know about that.
I could see that. Well, it depends actually. Yeah, some pixel games look really good.
Yeah. And it's also depending on what's the format of, or like what is the purpose of it. If you're trying to make something cutesy, it's easier in pixel art, and you should definitely stick to that. But 3D gives you some freedom, but it also has its own limitations. You can't cheat as much. You need to make things from every angle. And who wants to do that? What?
You can cheat it.
Oh, you can cheat it, definitely.
I like how that changed so fast. You can't cheat it. You can definitely cheat it.
Well, there are things you can cheat. There are other things you can't cheat. There's this wonderful story about Diablo 3. There's this cutscene where a big demon goes down and it puts its hand down in front and is really, really threatening. Problem is it can't physically do that because it has 4 crab legs and a big round butt. So what they did is they put so much smoke in the scene that you cannot see his butt. And then they just lifted the whole thing in the air so that his torso and hand could reach the ground. Yeah. So of course you can cheat, you just gotta hide it. But if you're making a game and you have to see 3D models in the game, well, you gotta see them from every angle a lot of the time.
Camera angles, though.
Camera, you can cheat with camera angles, you're right. But nobody really does fixed camera angles anymore.
We do. Our
Oh, great.
No, but it's good.
It's good, you say?
Yeah. It's
I
good.
want to see it before I
Use
believe
of,
it.
I don't know. I'm just a 3D artist.
Oh.
I'm not
All
camera-
right. So I feel almost good. I feel like there's a little bit more definition on the doo-wop that can come in and stuff like that. But I feel like we're at a point where I can start to move on, and I need to start working on my horns, and I need to start working a little bit on the neck and that whole jam and things that are going on there. We could of course also do that later, but right now I feel like a lot of this horn shape right here is so important for this design that it needs to get in there. So one of the things we'll note with our snake hook tool is it comes out very straight, like very one-dimensional. As you can see here, my horns are just straight backwards as if they were an antelope's horn. And these horns seem like they would go a little bit out to the side. So what I want to do is I want to start moving them so that they are actually out to the side. And this can be a bit difficult because you don't want to move the underlying mesh and yeah. So it's just about tweaking them out so we get the necessary shape here. And don't worry, we will fix the wonkiness of them if we want to. These horns are nice and jagged and a little bit wonky. So of course we can use the wonkiness we're being offered here for our final design. All right. So the next thing I can see here is they are very, very thin. And I might not want them to be that thin. I might want them to be a little bit thicker. So we can go on from our sculpting tools and our move brush, and we can find the brush called Inflate. Now Inflate, oh, I have my brush too big. If your brush is at its max size with Inflate, it will inflate the whole object like this. We don't want that. So take it a bit down, and what it will do is it will treat your geometry as if it was a balloon, and it will just inflate it up. And this might seem a little bit extreme, but what it's giving us is enough geometry to go in and work with. And also enough geometry to smooth out. So, like I said before, we wanted to get rid of some of the janky back and forth here. So now that we've inflated it, we can smooth it out, right? And this will slowly but surely create a more pleasant shape for us. And Inflate Brush is also the other tool, except for the Move tool, that will not create new geometry. It will just use what's already there and existing. Okay, there we go. So moving, back to moving, because now you can see this isn't in line with our silhouette. I want it to be in line with our silhouette, so I'm going to move it out. I can also make the horns longer at this point if I want to. It's a lot looser workflow, this, and you're really allowed to play around with it as much as possible. That's also how you sort of get a feel for all the brushes and all the tools, is playing around with it and getting it to a point where I sort of understand how this works now. And then you play around with it some more and go, I did not understand how this worked. And then you realize how they work after that. And it's amazing. It's lovely. It's such a good program. It's absolutely, it's weird for a computer program to have like a textile feel, but it really does have a textile feel, at least for me. And it's just lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. What?
Nerdgasm.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, it's absolutely amazing.
Is there a way to deflate it? Is that just by holding Alt?
Yes, exactly. So you can deflate by holding Alt. Most of the time, if you have like sharp edges, this will result in folding in on itself, but then you can smooth things out. Yeah, you can also just smooth it. That will also sort of deflate things. It'll remove a lot of the extra geometry for you and stuff like that. And we're also going to get into a little bit more refinement of shape. Ooh, this is a lovely shape for a horn. I like that. I'm going to keep that. You can see here the horns sort of have this skin flap that goes down to the body. I want to start getting that a little bit more and just smooth out. Can I smooth? There we go. So one of the things that smooth will also do for us is if we have two pieces of geometry that's very close to each other, it will sort of start blending them into each other, which is really nice when we need to do these merging skin flaps or merging, yeah, different merging parts where things might be disconnected, but we want them to be connected. Then using the inflate brush and then the smooth tool will sort of create that. It's also, so I cannot make this program do it on purpose, sadly. It's like one of those things where I cannot make it destroy itself on purpose. I'd love to if I could. But if you get holes in your mesh, and that will happen sometimes. You'll have like a hole one place or another. Use the inflate brush to like inflate it, smooth it out, inflate it, smooth it out, inflate it, smooth it out, and that will fix the hole in your mesh. All right, just checking my horns a little bit more. I want to move them out. Doop, 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 doop. I'm going to smooth them so they're pointy. There we go. So let's see, what else do we want to use? Yes, of course. So we have our horns and they might be a little bit bubbly, they might be a little bit weird. And the same thing for other parts of our dragon. They might be a little bit too round compared to what it is we like desire, what we want to have. So we have our H polish brush. And our H polish will flatten things out for us. So you can see here, I can flatten out my nose. And it will, where you put your mouse down first is where it will decide that that's the angle it's going to flatten things down to. So you can really create these nice flat definitions. If you feel like you've lost some of your shape, it can sometimes be nice to use this to flatten out parts and then get like the planes of the face in, or the planes of your sculpt in. So you can see again, oh, this is sort of what I was going for. This is where I wanted my definitions to be. And this will ruin your details, but again, we'd rather have our silhouette, our basic shapes looking the way we want them to than we want our details there. Our details we can always add in later. After you've put them in once, it'll be easier to put them in the second time. Trust me. So, yeah, just sculpting along, just defining different shapes here. I really want the bottom here defined. I want my top here defined. I like this shape. I want to keep this shape up here. And then this one. There we go. And then let's see here. What do we have? We have like these extra ridges. So I can't see if this little lump here is a part of the horn or if it's spines on it in between the horns. I'm going to say it's a part of the horn because that makes the horn more interesting. So I can go back into my clay brush or standard brush, whichever one you prefer. I can start adding in that ridge because I want that to be there. because it gives this more feral, like the horns. Oh. Oh no. At some point I have pressed X and I've turned on off symmetry, and that's actually just sad. Okay, there we go. We're back to symmetry, guys. So like I said, the reason why we're working with symmetry is because as much as possible, we want to save ourselves work. And we want to make sure that we only start doing asymmetrical work once we need to do asymmetrical work. If we're doing some weird, if we're doing a flounder, then we can do asymmetrical work from the start. If we're not, just start with symmetry for as long as possible. It'll be your best friend. All right. Just adding a wee bit of definition here. And I'm okay with these extra ridges. That looks good. I like having a little bit randomness in horns. Like when you really start looking at horns on animals, you realize how random they form and how strange the whole concept is. Like one of the things, so we used to do this where we were mixing a deer and an axolotl, the salamander, the Mexican immortal salamander thing. And I figured out while looking at deer, elk, moose, whatever, that antlers are technically not like, they're not horns. It's cancer. It's literal cancer tumors that they just figured out how to control. And that's such a wild concept to me. Yes.
So, is it possible, like in normal ZBrush, to take one side and mirror it?
In normal ZBrush, yes.
Not here.
No. All right. I want to flatten this out. Flat, 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 flat. Just define this. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, look at that flattening. It's amazing. We can flatten out the bottom here, really give it a strong jaw. And if we want to help this flattening out, or we want to define some of the edges we're creating with it a bit more, we have this tool called pinch, and it will pinch your geometry together and create, and whatever hard edges you have, it will make them harder. And it's really nice. It can also be used to, like, if you have an area of the mouth like this and you really want this area to be closer to each other, you can use the pinch brush. It sort of just makes my dragon look old. But yeah. All right. It's not half bad. I think I want to move this a little bit down. There we go. That also gives us space for an ear. Boop. Yeah. Go. All right. So, how's everybody doing? You following along? You falling in love? That's what I like to hear. Yes.
My mic is not on, but Edgar is asking, how can you animate this? Open
So-
the mouth, for example.
So Edgar at home is asking how we can animate this. Well, in ZBrush, you can't. And if you have like a full version of ZBrush, you can, but don't. Again, it's a specialist software, and they just added animation, I think 6 months ago, and it's not good. It's not worth it. Take it into Blender, do that. I'll show you a little bit of tips and tricks and how-tos at the end of this, because yeah, we'll get there soon enough. Don't worry. How are we doing for time, by the way?
1 hour in. We're chilling.
Oh, we're 1 hour in. Great. Okay. Well, ZBrush is definitely the tool to chill with. I just started introducing my 2-year-old daughter to ZBrush. Yeah, no, she can't sculpt. She can't. But I give her one of my models and I set it, so in full ZBrush you can set it to paint, to color, and she loves that. So she'll get one of my models and she'll just sculpt away out there. It's or not sculpt, but paint away on it, and it's something. I think that's the best way I can say it. It's definitely something. All right. So I'm defining a little bit of wrinkles here. I'm not actually going to define too many wrinkles on the neck because wrinkles are something that are asymmetrical, but I just want them to be there to sort of start guiding where it is I want them, how it is I want them, things like that. But like big wrinkles will sort of be a little bit asymmetrical, but not small wrinkles. They will or big wrinkles will be symmetrical. Small wrinkles won't. Small wrinkles will always be asymmetrical. So once we start going into asymmetry, we will go over that, don't worry. I think, let's see, so this is an interesting shape in here. It comes from the jaw and then goes down here. And because I haven't detailed, I'm not worried about ruining anything I've done. So this is why I keep saying, do basic shapes first, and then we can do details. Because we want our basic shapes, we want our silhouette, we want what people will recognize first to be what's important, what's defined, what's good. So yeah, just creating here. Yes. All right.
Edgar also wants to know about your pen, and I was wondering if you actually put this up there.
Yeah, but I don't think you have any USB plugs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So just a little bit of a disclaimer. I use a Wacom tablet, and when I bought it, it had very high reviews. I'm not sure I would give it a high review. I use it because it's what I have. I have a screen on it as well. It's really nice. But there are better alternatives out there.
I found a USB.
You found a USB?
Yeah.
Lovely.
This one is charged now.
Great. So yeah, I can do it like this. I don't know where it is.
I think it's on right now.
Okay, so we will add display, no, we will add video source.
The video capture device.
And there we go. I got it. Oh, it's just filling everything. Sorry about that. Whoop. Just make this little boy. Here. Yeah, so now you can see I have a screen tablet. And we actually give you, when you start on 3DDA, we actually give all our students a tablet. We recently switched to Huon tablets because they used to have a driver or a software issue that meant that they couldn't be used for 3D, but they fixed that. So now it's just as good, if not better than Wacom for a third of the price. So that is just absolutely amazing. All right, I'll do that one. I'll get it in there. Here we go. Yeah, I make weird noises when I sculpt. I think most sculptors, one way or another, will do the same as animators. They will also be singing and doing weird things when they animate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's lovely being in a room with 3D artists because it's just a room of noise. Sometimes. Other times it's just quiet, and honestly that's okay.
Yeah, there are two moods: the chill mood, and then the.
And then deadline. Well, no, because you guys are beginning on your journey here, right? So you're concentrated, you're trying to learn the software, you're trying to figure out what secret magic it is that are in my hands that is creating these shapes. And that secret magic is just a few years of practice and dedication and good teachers. So yeah, we have what's his name? Daniel Danko.
Crazy.
Yeah, he is our guest teacher for ZBrush sculpting, and what he does for a living is creating collectibles. So he is likely one of the best ZBrush artists in the world because he will spend all his time in ZBrush. He doesn't have to worry about taking it into other software. He just does ZBrush, which means he has so much practice with it, and he is so good at teaching our students. So yeah, if you want a chance to learn from him, we offer the best one in Denmark. So yeah, right. That's creating a little bit here. All right, so did I go through all of the brushes? I did not. We are missing the final brush before we go into projection brushes. The final brush we have is our slash brush. It's next to the polish one, right beneath the move. And what it will do is it will create these slashes or gashes or indents in your model that you can use sort of the same way as you can use the sculpting brushes, but opposite. And then it has a lot finer point than your sculpting brushes do. So you can use it to create a lot more like fine details. It's really good for wrinkles, like around eyes if you're doing crow's feet and stuff like that. Oh, we're getting to a good point soon. Or also to create, but let's wait with that until we get to asymmetry, everybody. Just saying, if you want to create like a scar, there, perfect. I was waiting for this one. This might pop up every now and again. So ZBrush Core Mini is a wonderful program for what it is. It does though come with a limitation of 750,000 polygons. That sounds like a lot, but it's not. My general sculpts very easily range up into 25 million. But ZBrush Core Mini has this limit. It's not really anything to be scared of because it tells us to reduce here. And if we do that, and then after a short wait, it will reduce our amount of polygons. And you will see on my sculpt, it won't actually lose a lot of detail. So we went from 750 to just under 300,000, and there wasn't actually a change in my sculpt. We can also do this manually throughout our sculpt. We have these three buttons, low, mid, and high, which will take it down to 150,000 polygons. I'll just do that to mine. It will take it down to 300,000 polygons and 500,000 polygons. So it's changing this geometry in here. It's changing this to and seeing where do I have a lot of detail and where do I have a little detail. And then it's placing geometry strategically so that you keep your detail in areas where you need it, but in big areas where there's not a lot of definition, not a lot of detail, it's removing it and putting it other places. So you have these places where there's not a lot of geometry, not a lot of geometry, not a lot of geometry, not a lot of geometry. And then when you can see here around my nostril, it becomes a lot more dense. It's also a lot more dense around my lips and on the horn definitions. It's just lovely that this algorithm works so well. All right, what I am going to use my slash brush for is, there we go. Boop, boop, boop. I want to go back before that. I want to go low. There we go. Just waiting a few seconds for it to project. Thank you. And 150,000 polygons. Perfect. So I'm going to use my slash brush. I'm going to use it to create like some scale definition, scale ridges on my eyebrows, because all cool dragons have scales on their eyebrows for some reason. It also makes them very human. That's actually the reason for it. We don't realize how much of our personality is in or how much of our facial mimic is in our eyebrows until we shave them off. I had a wonderful experience of doing that in 2009. It removed every bit of personality I had. But it was a good lesson, especially like going forward, realizing how much personality is in eyebrows and in like the way your mouth is sitting in its rest position. Just astounding. So I want to define my eyebrows. We can even define a little bit in here, create a little bit of
Is that why eyebrow cuts makes this look more interesting?
Yes, because it pulls interest up towards your eyebrows, which automatically show a lot of your like your internal world, your feelings and your thoughts and things like that. Where are you emotionally right now? Unconsciously, our eyebrows will show a lot of that. That's really great. Let's do like this, make a nice old dragon. It's also really good, so I don't really, let me create an example of that. So we have these back spines here. So I'm going to pull one out. Oop. Pull one out there. Going to smooth it so it's a spine. Oh dear, I created it in the worst place possible. It's not like looking worse, but just for me to work with, it's in the absolute worst place possible. All right. So like with everything else, the slash brush has an alternate function. And what this will do is it will create a very sharp ridge, and it's really good for creating, like, if horns are poking through skin, it's really good to create that little border between horns, spines, teeth from the skin and into the yeah, the shape, or the horn, the spine, whatever you want to create there. And it's just it's such a lovely brush. And most brushes are like that. Most brushes have so much utility that you wonder what the hell you're going to do with them half the time. I want to create one up there. All right. Just going to create this, and then we will get. Actually, if we've been going for an hour, maybe it's time to just have a quick break before we go into the projection brushes. I think that might be where we're at. What does everybody at home say? Do you need a quick break? Get something to drink? Look at loved ones? Pet a cat? Touch grass? Yeah, touch grass. Because I normally, after an hour, I think it is really good for people to just have a quick break. It does not have a spike there. Wow. There we go. Yeah. What do you guys here say? Do you need a quick break? All right, everybody seems to be going, eh.
How much is left? Maybe you can end the stream and like do the last.
No, we still got a good bit. It's just, yeah. No, we can keep on going. I don't mind. All right. Okay. So that's how I would make the spines. Cool. So in the bottom here of our tool selection, we have 4 tools. These, they call them chisel tools, but what they actually are projection tools. What this does is it gives us some predefined objects that we can project into our dragon. This is really, really helpful, as it's really hard to make eyes in ZBrush Core Mini, so we get a bunch of eyes that we can use. With this, there's 2 possibilities here. One of them is you'll create nightmare fuel, and that is absolutely amazing. I love creating nightmare fuel with this because it happens so often. Or you will create, you'll get the right eye, but don't stick with the first eye you see. Like, go through all of them. Trust me, go through all of them and you will get the best result. If you feel like the eye you're projecting onto it is very low poly, change your brush size. And the smaller it is, the more definition your eye will have. It's not bad. It's not what I'm looking for, but it's not bad. Let's try the disturbing human eye. Here we go. Oh, it almost becomes friendly. That wasn't the intention, but it happened. It also has noses and mouths and things like that, and ears. If you want to make Falcor, you can do that. And of course, if you get a little bit creative with these projections, even though it's like ears and eyes and stuff like that, you can use them for other things. Just because they are ears and eyes doesn't mean they need to be ears and eyes. They can be horns, they can be spikes, they can be scales. There is scales, so I would use them instead. So, yeah. So, yeah, like, use them a little bit, play around with them a little bit, and that will most likely give you a good result. There are many different eyes and many things to choose from. I'm just gonna make this one small. There's also this beak here, or ear 3 in under Chisel 3D, which is creating these lovely spikes for me that I want on my doo-wop. Will it try pressing? Yeah. Do note that the projection will also create a whole lot of geometry. So you gotta reduce it a lot once you start projecting onto it. So, yee. Oh, that worked out like a charm. Yeah. But none of the eyes here worked for me. So I'm going to try. Oh, that's not bad. Eye 2 under Chisel Creature actually looks really nice for my dragon. I'm not gonna stick with it. I'm gonna try them all because else I don't know if there's something that would work better. But Eye 1, Eye 2 under Chisel Creature is actually working really well. We also have Chisel Shapes. This is quite literally just basic shapes that we're projecting onto it. So like cubes, tetrahedron. Yes, it is under Quick Save in Users ZBrush Core Mini. Yeah, so we are working with 3D software and they tend to crash, both Blender and ZBrush and Maya. Every 3D software tends to crash. Jesus Christ, who's sitting on that since the hard drive filled like that? Sorry, that was just users, app data, no, shit. Documents and Pixel Logic. Oh, it might be Maxon. Google it because it might be changed because of the new owners. So yeah, I would Google it definitely. All right, and we have the final chisel tool here, which is called Chisel Organic, and it is the biggest one of them all. It has 85 different projections that you can use. And it is really useful to create things when you feel a little bit trapped. It can also be good to just come up with concepts to project a bunch of things onto it that aren't necessarily what you're thinking about in the moment, but it might help because you're just trying things out. Nope. Let's go on. I know there are more. Aw, cute Pikachu eyes. Yeah, no. I think mine is Chisel Creature, and then, so Eye 2 is the same as Eye 1, but with an eyeball in the middle. And So because I'm going to show the whole blender thing afterwards, I'm going to use I1 because then I get the cavity for the eye, but not with the eye, which means I can put an eyeball in there inside Blender and texture it differently. All right, there you go. Yeah, that looks good. I like that. And of course, we can go in, we can use our other tools to sort of change this a little bit. So I can see here, this eye is very round, it's very open. And I can, of course, change my eye lids so that this eye also becomes very open.
Can you actually recover ZBrush Core Mini files?
You should be able to. It has the same functions as ZBrush. It is literally ZBrush, but they have locked everything behind a different UI. It is the full program.
What the message with the mesh?
Oh, yes. So that's because you have too many polygons. It will tell you, it will give you upgrade or reduce. Just click the reduce. It'll take you down to 300,000 polygons, but it'll still be very usable. Like mine is right now on 357,000 polygons. That's still very usable inside of ZBrush Core Mini. It's still giving us enough geometry to actually work with. So there's nothing wrong with yeah, having that. Kind of want my dragon to be less happy. I want it to be happy in life. I want its mouth to be less happy as a standard. All right. So those are the chisel brushes. Under chisel creature, we have these scales. Now, we can do 1 scale, we can do 3 scales, or we can do a whole bunch of scales. When we are layering up scales on our creature, start from the bottom. Or if your scales are in opposite direction, then start from the top. But this allows us to project them on top of each other so that they overlap in what would be considered a realistic manner. Because if I go from the top and down, my bottom scales will be projected on top of my top scales, and that's not what I want. So we can do this and be a little bit careful here, a little bit careful there, and there. That's actually too big. Let's go here, here, and here. We also have some horns predefined. I just tend not to use them. It's a personal preference. All right. It's been a while since we had some questions from online. How are they doing?
They're doing well. There's just Edgar who was asking if there's any free version of ZBrush.
That is this. This is the free version of ZBrush.
Alright, we've got 12 people watching us and nobody saying much. I think they're all busy sculpting.
Oh, I expected so. Sculpting is normally a crowd pleaser, both for our students and for boot camps. Yeah. All right. Do I want to do anything else? I found there were some weird fungus shapes inside Chisel Organic. Do I like that? No, I don't like that. So you can see I'm literally just trying out things, seeing what looks good, what doesn't look good. And that's the way you should be thinking about these, is does this look good? Let me try it out. No, not really. And then go back on it and then try again. Here we go. It's giving us some nice definition there. Okay, yeah, no, that's okay. And what about this one? What will that do for us? Oh, that will do wonders for me. All right. So, because I said we were going to take this to the next step, right? I think we should just about do that now. So wrap this up and take it to the next step. still a little bit of like defining we can do. We can do like a little bit here on the lips, make them more defined, more dragony, and really work with it. That would be great. But for now, let us show the next part. So one of the big things in 3D is we cannot really use sculpts. And that sounds really counterintuitive because why the hell are we then making sculpts, right? Well, while we cannot use this sculpt, we can use this sculpt to make a model that we can then use. So up here in the top, we have 3 buttons. One of them is export image. If you click this, it will export you a JPEG. I also think, yeah, you can also do PSD, PNG, and all these different formats. And you can bring that home. You can also record a turntable. This will like spin your model around in the view you currently have and save out a movie. And the middle one is export for 3D printing. So that does mean you can export and 3D printed, but more than that, it actually exports as a format called OBJ. Blender can read an OBJ. So I'm going to, boop, 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 boop. I'm going to save out my weird, caps lock, weird dragon sculpt onto my desktop. Boop. And then I can open up my Blender. And this is for then the next step. This is what you would do with a sculpt afterwards. Oop, let me just get rid of this. Don't save. And now I can turn on my screencast keys while everybody is just sculpting their little hearts out. So here we go. Boop. And I'm turning this to orange because I like having my screencast keys match the color scheme of Blender. All right. So here we have my screencast keys, so you can see what I'm doing. Now, to get it into Blender, we want to import it. So we know we export it as an OBJ. So I'm going to go into my search tab. I'm going to search import. Oh, I cannot use my keys. I forgot that. Yeah, sorry about that. And then I can find the import wavefront, and that is the OBJ. I did export.
Maybe if you can show it again.
I can show it again, yes. So for those of you who are here live, this middle button right here will export for 3D printing, and it will export as an OBJ. And this one you can import into Blender and just put it on the desktop if you're here. If you're at home, put it wherever you can find it. I have put mine on the desktop so I can quickly get it. Yeah, then import it into Blender. It's going to take some time. This is a really big mesh. And this is why ZBrush is better than Blender at this. It can actually, ZBrush can handle a lot more polygons than Blender can. Whoop. So what we would do here is we would create a retop.
Which button do you press to export it?
It is this button. It's the one that looks like a 3D printer. There we go. We can create what's called a retop. And a retop is a separate piece of geometry. So I'm pressing Shift A, and I'm going to add a plane. You can see here's my little plane. I'm going to make my dragon a lot smaller. Move it down. There we go. A whole lot smaller. Move it down. There we go. So this plane...
Maybe you can show how to import it again.
Yeah, I can show how to import again. What we do is we press space to get our search function up and type in import. And then find the one called import. Again, sorry, I cannot use my keyboard shortcuts. I keep forgetting that one. So bad of me. So sorry. Yeah. So just waiting for people to catch up. Yeah. And of course, if everybody at home wants to know more, come in person on the 20. Come on the 20. What?
Oh, 24th.
24th for our open house, where I will be here and I will be OBJ, wavefront. Yeah. And when you import it, it will be absolutely giant. So scale it down a lot. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, like I said, inside Blender, it's kind of hard to work with this. If I press tab to get into edit mode, it's actually handling it fairly well today. You can see all of these vertices, all of these faces. This is not very good topology, it's not very good edge flow on our model. So we want to redo this, but instead of trying to clean this up, we can use it and create a new set of geometry on top of it. So that's what I'm going to do with this plane that I've added. So Shift A, Mesh, and then Plane here. And then this plane, I'm going to go in, I'm going to press Tab so I go into edit mode. And then up here in the top, we have this snapping function. I can turn on snapping, and I'm going to open up the little menu next to it. And then I am going to say face. This will allow me to snap whatever I've selected and whatever I'm moving to faces. So that means I can snap it onto faces of my object. And let's just see, closest. Yes, this is perfect. Yeah. So now when I grab this vertex and I move it close to my dragon, it will now snap to my dragon. It'll snap to the surface of my dragon. So that means I can use this by using the tools we used last week. Whoop. It can sometimes be hard to see. That is just the way of things here. Then press up here, we can turn on X-ray mode, then we can see a bit more. Or Shift Z. Alt Z. Alt Z, not Shift Z. All right. So what we can do here is in edge mode, we can extrude new edges out that will follow the mesh beneath it. So this means we can suddenly create a usable piece of geometry that will follow our dragon mesh. And because our dragon mesh is it's like a lot more organic way of working, that means that we'll get the base shapes and everything down quickly, and then doing this, which is called retopologizing. Click OK. Will allow us to get the same shape, but usable fairly quickly. And retop is one of those things where it takes a little bit of time to get used to it, but as soon as you got the hang of it, it just becomes like a meditation thing. This is you're having, you need a little break, you're a little creative slump. Well, I know I have to retopologize something. Oh, I'm gonna retop. It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be absolutely great. And it is really just fun. For me at very least, because I know what I'm doing. So here I'm gonna start defining the eye, and then from here I can go out, let me just check here. I also wanted to affect scale. I can extrude the whole area and then scale it up. And just continue to create more geometry until I get a usable point. So this becomes, once you're done with this, this becomes a piece of geometry that you can actually animate on. It also, if you want to open its mouth, this is the point where you make the inside of the mouth. You do have to turn off snapping, but then you'll create like, okay, maybe that was a bad example. It's a little too early. And there we go. Here we go. Now we have like a part of the jaw defined. So I'm going to turn off my snapping here. And now I can create the inside of, there we go, and create the inside of my mouth here. Yes?
Maybe you can also show how to save the ZBrush file so they can take it home with them.
Yeah, okay. That's actually not a bad idea. So yeah, so this is how you would retopologize a mesh and create usable geometry, usable meshes for creatures, characters, monsters, everything you would create inside of ZBrush. And of course, it's not going to be as dense originally, but you can always subdivide this and then refine it further and further and further. But we want to stay as low poly for as long as possible and then go high poly again. All right. All right. So I just got a suggestion in from the class, which might not be a bad idea. If you want to save this, guys, because you're here physically and you want to take it home, Control S, and this will create a file for you when you save it, of course. And this is my desktop, so I'm just going to call this one Horned Dragon. There we go. And then the format we want is setpr, ZBrush project. And this we can save out, and then we can open this one up in ZBrush Core Mini again later. It doesn't mean you can bring it home. You can send it to yourself as an email now. You can bring it home, work on it more with these up here. Open project, save project. I just saved this, so I don't want to save it again. I do Horned Dragon, and it'll open up the same file. All right. So I know the retopologizing went a little bit fast, but that's also because it was a little bit unplanned. So I just sort of freestyled it for you guys. That is pretty much it. I mean, it's not. I could go on to sculpt on this for hours and hours and hours. I love sculpting. It's amazing. So what you've created today, the dragon, you can actually, with the OBJ file, you can take it out and you can 3D print it. So as you guys at home, you can see here I'm sitting with something in my hand. This is, oh, there you go. This is a miniature. It's in 5x size, but it's a miniature that I designed and sculpted inside of ZBrush, and then I've 3D printed it out. So there is a lot of possibility for what you can do, and you have your own, like ZBrush Core Mini, you have full creative license with what it is you're creating inside of it. So you can do that, definitely, if you want to. And you have access to a 3D printer if you have a makerspace or a friend who has one. So yeah. All right. I think that we should go to the Q&A section. Because from here on out, like everything I can show you from here on out is just repeats of what we've already done, but me refining more and more details on my sculpt. And you're doing your own thing, hopefully. Or you're following along, that's also okay. I'm not trying to shame you. So, yeah. If anybody has any questions about the education, where you can learn more, ZBrush, to the industry, everything, I am here and ready to answer them.
How did you like extrude more pieces?
Control E. I selected an edge and then I went Control E. Yeah.
If you were making like a full body
Yes.
structure, would you then also make all of it in ZBrush?
Yes.
Yeah. So just and then just.
Then export it, and then depending on what I need to do with it, I would do a retop. If I'm doing 3D printing, I don't. Then that reduce, the low poly reduce is what I click on, because I'm printing miniature scale. So as this high, even if there is some segmentation, you don't really care. But if you're doing like super high fidelity sculpt for movies, then you do everything in ZBrush. A lot of the time, companies will have like base meshes, especially if you're doing human beings. They'll have base meshes and say, well, this is where you need to start from. and then create everything on top of that. If you're doing creature design, it's a little bit more. We need a creature. This is the design of it. Somebody has drawn, or we need a creature. It needs to be scary. Then you go on for that, because not a lot, but there are some concept artists out there who use ZBrush as their main tool, and they will just concept art directly in ZBrush, and deliver that. So that's definitely a possibility, because that also then skips a step where you would go from 2D concept to 3D to 3D sculpt, and then you have to retopologize. 3D concept artists just deliver the 3D model that somebody then retopologizes. It's really cool workflow. Also really expensive. So, yeah, and for games, you still definitely use ZBrush, but again, you then do a very, very baked down retopologizing, because games, while we do have things inside of games nowadays, that means that poly count, the amount of faces we have in viewport, don't matter. If those faces need to move, if they need to deform in any way, that suddenly begins to matter. Game characters still aren't much higher than 44, 50,000 polygons. So compared to these 250,000 I'm sitting with right now, and this is just the head, that's not usable for games at all.
Yeah, and then you just do the same we did in Blender with.
Exactly. And there are things like, if you're doing hard surface, if you're doing a barrel, or you're doing a sword or a knife or anything in that sort of area, you would most likely start inside Blender, and then you would import it into ZBrush, and then you'd make all the details, the scritches and scratches and things like that. So there's definitely, like, you do use ZBrush. ZBrush is one of those tools that, for now, is just a stable part of most advanced pipelines. Was there a hand over there before? Yeah? Oh, okay, you might just have been stretching. I was looking at it out of my eye, and I have this thing. Yes?
Not so much about the lessons today. It's the yes.
Yes, of course, of course.
I work with point clouds.
Yes.
Scans.
Yeah.
Is it like how it's okay to work with that in Blender?
It depends on which format you are working with as 3D scans, because I have recently been doing that as a part of a research project. Blender, if you're using LAS files from LiDAR scans, they cannot be imported into Blender as of yet. There might be a plugin, but you can't really do it apart from that. You can do it. You can import it into Unreal Engine.
It's an 4 file.
Let's take that one afterwards. I will figure that out. Yes, so Blender does have a point cloud system. It's fairly robust, so you can definitely work with them and edit them. I think if you want a specialized tool that can do that, I would look at something like Houdini, because Houdini definitely reads point clouds and is, like ZBrush is a specialized sculpting tool, Houdini is a specialized simulation tool, and everything they do is in point clouds, pretty much, one way or another, and then it just transformed into other things. So that would probably be the way I would look at it. I know there are ways of doing it apart from that, but not off the top of my head. So yeah. Any questions from the online people? All right. Well, we'll give them a little time to catch up. They do have, what is that? What are they, 20 seconds behind?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do have something for you also, Chuck, I might ask you about in a moment.
All right.
Just making a quick survey to our 3D Bootcamp participants.
Yeah.
I have ready in a moment.
If you guys want to take your files home with you, just save it, Control S, and then then like log into your mail or something, send it to yourself. It's gonna log out from your whatever you log into anyway when you upload the PC. I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. These users should clear their cache.
Yeah, they reset everything. So just whatever way you prefer to send it to yourself. It can be anything. Really.
Yeah, just don't tell the browser to save your credentials.
Yeah.
That's if you're really paranoid about us getting to your email, don't save credentials. All right. Yeah. So you see, I'm just using my sculpting brushes to define the horns here more. And that is, at this point, we've defined our base shapes. We've defined our medium level details. So now we just go in and add all the other things, all the fun things. Normally, I would add teeth and stuff like that inside of Blender because teeth tend to be separate objects. So I would add them inside of Blender afterwards. But if you want to add them now, we can add them with the snake hook. There is also some projection inside of the chisel organic that is teeth. Let's see here. There we go. That you can use. And like get a nice base shape. Ooh, triple projection. I haven't gotten that before. There we go. Same thing here. Boop, 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 boop. Oh. Boop, 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 boom. And oh, that is just lovely. Nice flat tooth. I even think there's one of the horns that is actually really good for tooth or for teeth. Yes, it's really good for tooth. Is it? It's under chisel creature instead. Yeah. Oh, it's actually called tooth, so that's perfect. Oh, that looks good. It's a little bit much there, but you know. So yeah.
Is there a way we can share a link with people that
Send it to them on an email.
That's the best.
Yeah. Yeah, else we need Chris. So, yeah.
I'm posting a link on the chat if you could ask people who are home online if they can go fill out the form.
Oh yeah.
Basically a form to help us make 3D Bootcamp better.
Yeah. All right, everybody at home. There has recently been posted a link in the chat from our YouTube channel, and it is asking you guys, what can we do better for 3D fundamentals? Or not 3D, from 3D Bootcamp, of course, which is this. What is working? What's not working? Help us improve to help you. We're sort of figuring out we think we figured out our format, but we don't know it until you tell us if it works or not. So please help us by telling us we're doing good or we're doing bad. Oh yeah. Thank you. You know what? That's all I needed to hear. Cancel the survey. We're good. Yeah. And for those of you who are here, well, either you go around, you turn it on for everybody, or you go to the link yourselves, or with your help, or you send it to them in an email, and then they take it later.
You do an email, but then I send an email to everybody now. 90 people there.
Yeah, maybe don't do that. All right, all right, all right, all right. There we got our teeth. That's brilliant.
You are actually one of those guys. You could send it there. But then we're gonna get all of us to send it as well. This is not great. How do I send it to you guys?
Yeah, marketing's trying to figure out how to send the link that we've sent to everybody at home to the people who are here physically.
If we do an email, it's gonna go out to like 100 people at least. If it's only one, it's like, if it's only one, it's like 90.
Oh, that looks great.
It's like a
I
lot.
love that.
You know what, fuck it, I'm sending it out as a link. Can do what? No, I was thinking app dropping. But you have iPhone, right? Yeah, I got Android. So that doesn't fully work either. But unless, you know what, I'm gonna make it. Fuck it.
Stop swearing on stream.
Oh, who swore?
You did.
I did.
I had a slip up earlier as well.
I did it last time as well. Christian noticed and was like, oh, we should do that, should we? Oops. You know what, I'm just doing it.
And there's a little bit of a like chaotic spin to the teeth. I like that.
Meanwhile, also, the school has the Discord, if anyone's interested and not in it. It's a Discord where all the students are and people chilling and they're showing off their 3D work. And if you want to see what some of the students make, that's a cool place to do it or to see it. And you can also post your cool things, such as your chicken. I think people would have a blast seeing that. But yeah, so the Discord is on the website somewhere, but
It's on the front page.
Yeah. So Mito's just saying that there is a school Discord that anybody is welcome to join and see what it is our students are making or post their own stuff and get feedback on that from the students. Students love to see people's work and give feedback on it. It's a good place. It's a good community.
Even just looking around now, it's like you're all kind of following a tutorial, but everyone's doing like their own thing, and everything looks like so cool, and I love to see it.
By the way, speaking of which, I don't know if Edgar is still here, but he promised us a badass wolf he'd made since the last class. He said he was going to post it on Discord. Did you by any chance see him post something? I don't know if Edgar is still with us live, but if you are, we want to see that badass wolf, please. Also, Cosmo says he misses the Mitsu and Shelfie pod. Well, we might bring that back at some point.
Oh, chats with Mito and Shelve.
Yo, what up? I'm here. Wait, am I muted?
Yeah, no, you're not muted.
It is on our website. So yeah, somewhat on the front page.
Front page.
Yeah. It's also on the. Is it in the YouTube links?
I don't think it's on the. We can add that to.
We can add
I
it.
think, yeah, we'd watch
to
out with
YouTube
that.
too. But yeah, it's a couple of different places. So if you're looking for it, it shouldn't be too hard to find, I guess.
It should be very easy.
Yeah.
And I'm the guy called Mito on the Discord. FYI, if you see me text, it's me. Oh yeah, wait, I'm going around with a mic so they can hear me. Hi.
It's Mito.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Podcast. Another time.
All right.
Am I mute? Am I? No, I'm not.
No,
Wait.
you're not muted. People can hear you.
Okay.
All right. Creating a little bit of scales here on the top. Not that the concept art had it, but I have it down, so I am free range, guys. Do whatever I want. And as you can see now, I've added a little bit asymmetry. I've added teeth to one side and different teeth to the other side. Even have a little broken one right here. Because that's just gonna, like, symmetry's good, but asymmetry's better. We like asymmetry. It really, like, it just creates so much visual interest. And even though I was prattling on about the bilateral symmetry of life earlier, it's just rough shapes. You want the details, a little bit of details, a little bit of something to be skewed here and there. Like our eyes aren't the same size. Our lids are generally not the same amount of closed at all times. So we have all these things where we like symmetry, just not 100%. Just want the last 5% to not be symmetrical. Please and thank you. Let's just create a little bit of scar tissue here. This guy's seen some battle. Let's get some on the other side. Yeah, well, I think if there's no other questions from chat and things like that, I think it's about time to close down this stream. Yeah, if you still are curious, come to our open house the 24th live, where we will be doing animation. You can hear more about the education. You can hear more about the school in general. And I think you can meet some students and some teachers. It's going to be lovely. And we look forward to having you. If not, well, we'll see you next week, where we are doing texturing and rendering. And it is going to be great. We're doing that on open house. Yeah. Let's go. Some undo histories has been auto-deleted. Great, lovely. Yep. Well, in that case, I will see everybody online next Thursday. I hope you are doing fine and you will continue your 3D journey with us. And yeah, hope to see you in August. Bye-bye.